Imagine you're standing in the middle of a busy street, traffic rushing past, strangers everywhere, and suddenly, your heart starts pounding, your palms go cold, your chest tightens, your mind races, but nothing has actually happened. Nothing has touched you. Nothing has hurt you. And yet your body is already in crisis. This is the power of fear. And for millions of people, this isn't a rare moment. It's an everyday reality. Fear doesn't need a real threat to take control. It just needs a thought, a memory, a what if. What happens inside your brain when fear takes over is one of the most extraordinary and alarming stories in all of neuroscience. And what an ancient letter, written nearly 2,000 years ago, says about it may surprise you. Deep within your brain, tucked beneath layers of gray matter, sits a small almond-shaped structure called the amygdala. Neuroscientists sometimes call it your brain's alarm system. And for good reason. It has one job, and it does that job faster than you can think. The moment your senses detect something that could be dangerous, a loud noise, a threatening face, an unsettling memory, the amygdala fires. It doesn't ask questions. It doesn't wait for confirmation. It acts. Instantly. Scientists call this the low road and the high road. The low road is a lightning-fast shortcut. Sensory information travels directly to the amygdala before your conscious mind has even processed what's happening. The high road takes information through the thinking part of your brain, the prefrontal cortex, where it gets evaluated rationally. But here's the thing. The low road is 12 times faster. 12 times. That means your brain reacts to fear before you even know you're afraid. When the amygdala sounds the alarm, a cascade of events follows. A biological chain reaction that your ancestors depended on for survival. It triggers your hypothalamus, which signals your adrenal glands to flood your body with stress hormones, adrenaline and cortisol. Adrenaline is the immediate surge. Your heart rate skyrockets. Blood rushes to your muscles. Your breathing sharpens. Your pupils dilate to take in more light. In less than a second, your body has transformed into a machine built for one purpose: fight or run. But here's where the modern tragedy begins. That system, ancient, powerful, effective, was designed for genuine physical threats. A predator, a fall, an enemy. Not a stressful email, not a difficult conversation, not the quiet worry that hums in the background of a life lived under pressure. When cortisol, the long-acting stress hormone, stays elevated for hours, days, or weeks, as it does in chronic anxiety, it begins to damage the very brain that produces it. Studies from Harvard and Stanford have shown that prolonged cortisol exposure physically shrinks the hippocampus, the part of your brain responsible for memory and rational thinking. It impairs the prefrontal cortex, the seat of judgment, wisdom, and self-control. In other words, long-term fear rewires your brain to be more fearful. Fear, when it runs unchecked, doesn't just affect how you feel. It affects how you think. It narrows your perception. It catastrophizes small problems into overwhelming disasters. It silences the calm, reasoning voice in your mind and amplifies the frantic one. Psychologists call this cognitive distortion. The rational brain gets hijacked. Decision-making deteriorates. Creativity collapses. The very faculty that makes us human, our capacity for reasoned thought, gets overridden by a structure older than language itself. And this is where something remarkable happens. Because over 2,000 years ago, a man sitting in a Roman prison wrote words that sound less like ancient theology and more like a prescription from a neuroscientist. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. 2 Timothy 1:7. The Apostle Paul wrote these words to a young pastor named Timothy, who was, by many accounts, struggling with anxiety and timidity. Paul's instruction wasn't dismissive. He didn't say, "Just don't be afraid." He said something far more specific and far more profound. He named 3 things that God gives in place of fear: power, love, and a sound mind. Read those words again with fresh eyes. Power, the capacity to act, to move, to engage rather than freeze. Love, the orientation toward others rather than inward collapse. And a sound mind. In the original Greek, the word is sophronismos, meaning self-discipline, clarity of thought, sobriety of judgment. What Paul described as a sound mind is, in neurological terms, precisely what fear destroys: the regulated, rational, compassionate function of the prefrontal cortex. The ancients didn't have brain scans. They didn't know about cortisol. But they understood, through lived experience and spiritual insight, that fear attacks the thinking mind, and that there is a higher force capable of restoring it. Modern neuroscience has begun to catch up with what faith communities have practiced for centuries. Research from institutions like Johns Hopkins University and the University of Pennsylvania has shown that practices like prayer, meditation, and contemplative worship, when engaged in regularly, physically change the brain. These practices activate the parasympathetic nervous system, sometimes called the rest and digest system, which directly counteracts the fight or flight response. They lower cortisol. They strengthen the prefrontal cortex. They quiet the amygdala's alarm signals. In 2003, neuroscientist Andrew Newberg used brain imaging to study people in deep prayer and meditation. He found consistent decreases in activity in the parietal lobe, the region associated with the sense of self and threat, and increased activity in regions linked to compassion and attention. The brain, it turns out, is not fixed. It is moldable, and what you feed it matters enormously. The Book of Psalms, one of the oldest collections of human poetry ever written, is saturated with anxiety. Its authors wrestle with fear in language that feels startlingly contemporary. Psalm 56 verse 3 says, "When I am afraid, I put my trust in you." Notice what it doesn't say. It doesn't say, "I am never afraid." It doesn't pretend the fear isn't real. It acknowledges the feeling and then makes a deliberate choice about what to do with it. That act of conscious reorientation, turning attention from threat to trust, is exactly what cognitive behavioral therapy teaches as a core tool for managing anxiety. The ancient Hebrews didn't call it neuroplasticity, but that's what it is. The prophet Isaiah, writing in a time of national crisis and exile, records these words from God to a terrified people. "Do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." Isaiah 41:10. Strength, help, upholding. These are active, present tense promises, not distant theology, but immediate relational presence. And neuroscience has something to say about that too. Research on the neuroscience of social bonding shows that feelings of secure attachment, of being held, supported, not alone, measurably reduce amygdala activation. The brain in the presence of trust is a calmer brain. Whether that trust is in another person, a community, or something transcendent, the biological effect of felt security is real. Loneliness and isolation, by contrast, are among the most powerful activators of the stress response. The human brain was not built for solitude in crisis. It was built for connection. Perhaps the most astonishing piece of this ancient modern conversation comes from the Apostle Paul again, this time in his letter to the Philippians. Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. Philippians 4:6-7. Prayer with thanksgiving. Gratitude practices have become one of the most rigorously studied interventions in positive psychology. Dozens of peer-reviewed studies show that regular gratitude exercises lower cortisol, increase dopamine and serotonin, the brain's natural mood regulators, and reduce activity in the brain's threat detection networks. And then Paul says something remarkable: a peace that transcends all understanding, meaning it isn't produced by circumstances, by solving the problem, by making the threat go away. It is a peace that the rational mind cannot fully explain. Scientists studying the brains of long-term meditators and people of deep faith have documented something they struggle to fully explain: a baseline state of calm that persists even under stress. The brain's alarm system is still present. It fires when needed, but it doesn't run the show anymore. The technical term is emotional regulation. The biblical term is the peace that passes understanding. They are describing the same reality from different windows. Fear is not weakness. It is biology. It is millions of years of survival coding embedded in your nervous system. And in the right moment, it saves lives. The goal is not to eliminate fear. The goal is to not be governed by it. What neuroscience is discovering, painstakingly, with brain scans and clinical trials and decades of research, is something that faith has whispered across millennia: that the fearful mind can be renewed, that the hijacked brain can be reclaimed. That there is a state of being beyond the alarm, grounded, clear, and free. The words of 2 Timothy 1:7 are not a command to suppress what you feel. They are an invitation to remember what you have been given. Not a spirit of fear, but of power and love and a sound mind. Science is only beginning to measure what that means. But perhaps the more important question isn't how it works. Perhaps the more important question is whether you'll choose to receive it.